Welcome to Forward Obsessed, where we talk to breakthrough business leaders and rising entrepreneurs about their journeys, origin stories, and aha moments. Hello and welcome to this episode of Forward Obsessed. I'm your co-host David Salinas. Today we had on with us Jared James. He's an entrepreneur whose journey starts in real estate. He'd become one of the biggest real estate brokers in the country before the age of 30. He would then turn into a personal brand and a serial entrepreneur. He brought the energy, and you guys are in for a real show. You're going to learn about his trials and tribulations, about his sense of comedy and humor that he brings to the table with every single moment, and who he is as a person and what he brings is authenticity and the realness. I'm really excited about this one. I hope you are too. Thank you for tuning into Forward Obsessed. Be sure to share the clips that you see. Be sure to follow us on all the platforms that you find us on, and enjoy the show. Hello and welcome to this episode of Forward Obsessed. I'm David Salinas here with my co-host,
Pete Sena.
And today we have Jared James. Jared, thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah, it was a long walk, man.
Yeah, so you are a resident of District.
Yeah.
And we are happy to have you. That's where we met.
Happy to be here.
You're part of the community. You have multiple companies operating out of this building. And I had no idea who you were. I saw all these T-shirts and things that said Jared James on them.
I'm a narcissist, so that's what you got to do.
And then you and I have actually we've had a couple dinners, talk, and I realized that you're a serial entrepreneur. And I was like, oh my God, we have to have you on the show. So thank you for joining Pete and I today.
Look, I love it here, man. Like, looking forward to it. As soon as you brought it up, it was a no-brainer. We had to make it work, obviously, but I've been looking forward to doing this. So,
well, before I got your rap sheet, I said, Jared James, is that a wrestler?
Dude, it's...
I said, he's not a wrestler, but he's a pretty cool guy. I was like, all right, well, send me the rap sheet over.
Dude, it's Hollywood star, porn star. That's what that name sounds like, Jared James. It's alliteration, okay? So luckily, neither of the two, but the alliteration works.
All right, so I will try to stay off Pornhub with Jared James.
Well, there you go. You won't find anything, hopefully, yeah.
So when we start off every show, we have we've gotten into a rhythm now where we always want to get to the kernel, the spark that created the entrepreneurial DNA in you. Mm-hmm. So what we found is it usually goes back to your childhood, your parents. Of course. So we would like to know, like, where are you from? What did your folks do? Yep. What's the Jared James DNA?
Yeah.
Dark and stormy day.
Yeah.
He's got a little vibe going today. I like it, Dave. You're bringing a new energy.
I personally, you may differ with this, but, there's the whole, are entrepreneurs born or are they made? But I do think that people are born with more entrepreneurial DNA than others. I think that it's natural and grown inside of them. And to me, the evidence of that is I have two brothers who are not entrepreneurial at all. So we're born in the exact same environment. So I think environment can fuel that entrepreneurial, it's like a kernel for a popcorn, right? It's only what it is until you throw it in a microwave, and then it has the chance to actually blossom, right? But if you take something that isn't that kernel, put it in the same microwave, it doesn't do anything like what that kernel did. It's even though it's in the same environment, right? And so I do think that there's a lot of things that can be seasoned and a lot of things that can be, but I think some people are just naturally more entrepreneurial. And I was like that since I was a kid. I was the kid who, I didn't have a paper route. I had 9 of them, and I would sub them out because somewhere along the line, my brain went, maybe not this word, I didn't say this isn't scalable. I wasn't a kid who knew what scalable meant, but in a way, in a child's mind, I went, this isn't scalable. This doesn't make sense. Like, I'm going to do this and there's a limit now. And I think that's what every entrepreneur does, is that when they play things out, they get to a place where they kind of go, okay, this has an end game. And once you get to that end game, it's like, well, why don't I just be an employee then? Because isn't that what I was avoiding? Like, the employee has the end game. So if I'm just going to build a business that has an end game, I've just created another form of a salaried employee. And as a kid, I figured that out, and I was like, I'm going to make less on each one of these routes, but I'm going to make more because I'm able to scale it out. And so I did stuff like that. I used to lend money out, for a promise of return, which is so crazy. And I'm talking, I need $5, and it's like, great, give me 10 by Friday. I was a little loan shark. And
I was going to say, you were a little
dude, that's it, man. They'd be like, I'm not giving you 10 by Friday. I'm like, go somewhere else, Mom.
Where were you on the totem pole? You had 3. It was 3 of you.
Middle, and I don't fit the characteristic. I have all of the traits of an older brother, which is strange. But I'm the middle kid,
So am I. I would disagree. I think that you and I are a lot more alike than we're not.
Maybe.
Yeah, I think the middle child is always looking for more opportunity and to stick out a little bit. I don't know if
I meant from a leadership perspective.
Okay.
Amongst my brothers.
Okay.
I meant from that perspective. I don't disagree with that. But from a leadership perspective, I act like the older. I am treated like the older. Even amongst my mother, like it's one of those things. My younger brother is almost 8 years younger than me. And I really was more of his father figure than his brother. Because just what kind of happens, 8 years difference is a it's a big difference, right? Mm-hmm. So anyway, so I grew up in that. My mother was
Where did you grow up? Just fresh.
Speaking of my mother was kind of a gypsy. 6 different states.
Wow.
Connecticut I was born in.
Okay.
Came back here, and I won't go into the whole story, but I was back here because of an abusive past. Like meaning like me and my 2 brothers have 3 different fathers. My younger brother's father, both my younger and my older, both of those dads are both dead now. Wow. But he was an extremely abusive man. And so my mother actually came across the country to get closer to family, to get away from him. Basically like it's like a Lifetime movie, like get away from this dude, right?
Wow.
But
you had to be that father figure because one didn't exist for you.
Oh, I was the adult as a kid, man. I was like counseling my mom when I was 10, I was always wise beyond my years, In high school, they called me the adult because I worked full time. I gave up playing soccer. That's why I love going to my kids' sporting things, because I gave up playing soccer. And I was the youngest MA in JCPenney history. I'd leave school at 1:53, drive 103 miles an hour to school, throw a suit on, to JCPenney, throw a suit on, and run the shoe department, men's and women's. And work full time, the whole thing. I was a different level of driven, even in high school, But that came from, what's that?
Yeah, no, I was gonna say, but it sounds like it wasn't like you got up in the morning and said, I want to make money. It sounds like you got up in the morning because of the environment that you grew up in. You needed to bring in some money.
I was helping support the household,
So this is necessity, right? Because they say entrepreneurship is the mother, the necessity that drives the thing, right? So that's
I played soccer my whole life. That was my sport. I was really good at it. And in high school, I switched over because I was kicking field goals at the gym teachers, usually the football teacher, coach, whatever. And I'm kicking field goals. And the gym teacher's like, you got to come kick field goal. You got to come whatever, which I never would have done. But the warm-ups for high school soccer were $92. We didn't have $92. So I literally jumped to football for 2 weeks because I was embarrassed of the fact that we couldn't afford the warm-ups. And the soccer coach, I don't know if I should say this publicly, but he's long gone, so it's okay. But he showed up at my house, and he's just like, what the heck are we doing here? What do you mean you're playing football? And when he found out what the deal was, he covered the $92. He's like, you're playing soccer,
That's awesome.
And, I don't think they're allowed to do that, but whatever. But the greater point I wanted to make was, when you go into all of that history and everything else, I think everybody always talks about how driven you are to be successful. And that's great. I think there's a lot of truth in that. I don't think I was driven by being successful. I think I was more driven by not being, like failing, The idea of being the struggle that I saw, and the idea of struggling to pay things and having that stress and having my kids go through that eventually, and all of that stuff. I don't know if you read a textbook, it's going to say that's right or wrong. That drove me way more. The floor drove me way more than the ceiling. Let's put it that way. Meaning that it wasn't a matter for me as a 12-year-old going, how high can I go? It was a matter of saying, I won't go this low. Right? And so that was a different driving force. I thought like that. It's like, I don't know how successful I can be, but I'm not going to be not successful.
So run from failure, not chase success.
Yeah, it's just like I don't know how far that can go. I don't know like what that looks like. I wasn't old enough. I wasn't mature enough to figure that out. But I've seen this, and I don't like this. And I didn't have a lot of examples of successful people. A successful person was someone who paid their bills, didn't beat their wife, and was around sometimes. That wasn't like a
that was the bar for you.
But I saw a lot of unsuccessful, and I'm like, I don't know what that looks like. I don't have a lot of people to look at. We didn't have the internet. I couldn't go on Instagram and see a bunch of fake entrepreneurs. So I didn't have that, to look up to. What I did have was a lot of examples around me of, I think there's more than that. I don't know what it is yet, but I feel like there's more than that.
I think it starts off material, right? So like for me, it was like, everybody, the kids that could get every single pair of sneakers that
Had them
came
at
out.
us.
Yeah, or the kids that had the watch, or the kids that had the brand new car when they got their driver's
How about the
license.
kids could just be on the soccer team and not worry about a warm-up?
Buying a warm-up, exactly.
Like-
so material, and then you reverse engineer that. It was like, okay, well, what do I have to do to achieve that?
Yeah.
And, part of it for me was I saw my father's paycheck, and I was like, what is that?
Yeah.
I was like, I almost make that much money already.
Yeah.
And then I was like, something's wrong here. And then that sort of created this hunger and this desire and this hustle. I think it's, as a kid, you reverse engineer from materials. You don't think about like, I'm going to be a CEO. You think about like, I want to make money so that I can buy shit.
Dude, I remember my mother, I came home one day and she was crying in the corner because she didn't have a job. She got laid off. And she went for a job that was $8 an hour. And she got turned down because she was too qualified. And I remember seeing her cry in the corner because she's like, too qualified. We're going to get evicted. Like, I just need the job, right?
Yeah.
And I remember like those kind of things stick in your head and you kind of go, yeah, we can't ever let that happen. And literally that's what I would think. I'm like, yeah, that can never happen. That can never, and I still didn't understand economies of scale, or I didn't understand any, whatever. But like, I knew that I could, this is no knock on her like at all, but I knew that I had within me to do more, to make more, to not worry on that level. You find as you get older, guys, everyone worries about money, right? Bill Gates worries about money, just about different things. Warren Buffett worries about money, just in a different way. So there's all different scales of where we're worrying. I didn't want to be at that scale. I didn't want to be turned down for a job for $8 an hour and be thinking about, how am I going to pay for things? Like, there's got to be a better way.
Well, at that stage and at that age, it's like the trials of trauma, right? Those are traumatic experiences. Sure. See an $8 an hour job, getting, fighting to get an $8 an hour job.
Yeah.
Looking at it, staring down the barrel of an eviction. Those are motivators.
Do you even know at that point? Like, I probably didn't even know what $8 an hour was, by the way. I just remember my mother saying it, but I didn't at that level understand what an hourly wage was or was all I understood was what you called the trauma, right? I just saw that and went, yeah, we can't be there.
She's upset. That
whatever that is.
Makes me painful.
Yeah, whatever that is, we can't be there. But I didn't understand, and the funny thing was that, and because of the way she was brought up, I was really taught that people who had money were not good people. She was very religious. She was now as I get older.
Most of them are.
Yeah. As you get older, you start to realize that, that's a safeguard. That's how you're protecting yourself. It's an insecurity because you don't have it, that kind of stuff. And you realize, as you get older and older that, money doesn't make you happy, but neither does being broke, and, I've lived in both places and I choose being able to pay the bills 100% of the time.
I want to talk about, so thank you for sharing that. And I think the audience is going to get a lot of value from that. I want to talk about, you worked a lot of odd jobs as a kid.
Oh, yeah.
And I think, the audience is probably like us here, understanding clearly that why you did this, right? So the why is, I think, pretty clear. Talk about some of those odd jobs and talk about that turning point for us in terms of when you realized, you know what? Fuck this manual labor shit.
Yeah.
Because I know that moment happened just in a little bit of prepping.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about where Jared James, not the wrestler, but the one that's sitting in front of me right now, where was Jared James?
There were born
Yeah.
Jared James.
I keep thinking of a wrestler. I don't know what it is.
There's a guitar player who's also a blue check, and his middle name is James, so I'm very angry at him. He's Jared James Peterson.
We met Jared James.
Yeah, we did.
If there is a guitar player, I know that name.
He's a blue checked, verified, very followed person. Jared James Peterson. Somebody made the joke at our advance. They were just teaching about Google, and they said, all Jared's got to do to dominate the internet is learn to play the guitar, and that guy's out of business.
Well, sadly,
I got both sides.
Well, sadly, nowadays, all you need is $15 a month, and you can have a blue.
That is so. That is
blue checks ain't cool like they used
I'm not
to
sure
be.
what it means anymore, but anyway, yeah.
But right on to you. So I think odd jobs.
Yeah.
Take the audience through just a couple of the different odd jobs that you did, and then that turning point moment where you said, "Fuck this manual labor."
Dude, the turning point. I remember the actual moment because it was that clear. My uncle was the town mason for Milford his whole life. And this is where I, all these philosophies, all these things that I talk about, I don't know if you call them philosophies, but like the business principles and everything that I talk about now, they don't come because I read a book or I watched a good video. Like I lived them and I continue to live them. I just pay attention like a good stand-up comedian. I just pay attention to everything. And my uncle, who was the town mason forever, when I hear people now and they say, what's the key to success? Work hard. You got to work hard. That is such a line of utter bullcrap. Like, working hard is like the batteries to a child's toy. It was supposed to come with it. Mm-hmm. Okay? We all work hard. My uncle worked hard.
Do we though?
Poor his whole life. But I'm saying people who are really trying to be successful,
It's table stakes.
expected that it comes with it. That's not a attribute that we have to, okay, well, here's the main thing. No. You're supposed to show up with that. You show up to a job or interview showered and with clothes. I'm not going to tell you to do that. You know what I mean? That's to get in the door. So I just assume that. I don't want to talk about that. That's a waste of time.
Have you interviewed anybody under 25 today?
Many.
Because the batteries aren't always part of the toy.
And they don't get the job. That's my point, is that for the level we're talking at, it's supposed to come with it. If you want to be qualified right off the bat, it's supposed to come with it. So when we talk about work hard and, number one, work hard, that's some nonsense self-help book crap that we put out there that you got to work hard, you got to whatever. Working hard is not the variable, okay? If working hard was the variable, my uncle would be the rich guy on this podcast right now. And yet he was poor his whole life. Worked hard. And so I remember vividly my uncle stopping me one day, and he, to his credit, he's alcoholic, brilliant chess player, taught me to play chess. I've got chess trophies and all this he taught me to play chess, whatever. Just one of those weird, brilliant savant, alcoholic, looking biker gang looking guys, And he stopped me one day, and he's like, we were playing chess, and he was probably drunk. The sun was up, so he was drunk. And smoked packs a day, the whole thing. And he goes, Jared, he goes, you've got it, kid, you've got it. And he says, I go to work every day, I work hard. He goes, I work my butt off. I do, blah, blah. And he goes, some guy I hate shows up in a suit, checks on me, makes sure I'm doing my job and whatever. And he's like, please don't grow up and be me. He's like, you need to be that guy. He's like, as much as I hate that guy, you need to be that guy.
And you remember that chess game?
Oh God, no, I remember that conversation very vividly. And he's like,
what went through your mind when you hear him say this, and you're looking at your uncle, obviously someone you looked up to?
Processing, just like I always do. I'm processing. I'm looking at it, and I'm processing. Going, do I defend him and go no, or is what he's saying true? Why is he saying this? Where is he coming from? What's the And I processed it, and I'm like, he's right. And then I went, I don't want to be that guy either, though. I'm not looking to work for the city. Nobody says if I work real hard and do good, I can work for the town. Maybe DMV will open up a slot. Those are the real, I'm get myself in trouble here, but let's face it, that's not the career, So I processed all that, and then I also went, yeah, not that either, but I get what he's saying from the level he's saying it from, right? And that was the day I realized hard work was more than that was the only variable,
The message was, there was a message behind it. Aim higher.
He's going, here's what he was saying. He was saying, I screwed up. He was admitting I screwed up. He was admitting, like everybody else in the family, we drop out of high school, we do whatever, we're alcoholic. He's like, I screwed up. He hit a point in his life where he figured that out. We just did a whole thing. At my Vance, I just did a thing. I did a closing session on financial personal freedom, this whole thing. And I did a whole thing just on leverage. And it's so funny because we try to take people who are in that position, and we're like, they're lazy, they don't want blue collar work. And we're going to get to that in a second. I know you asked me that question. And I'm like, just like my mother in the beginning talked about finances, I'm like, you're just protecting yourself. Because people like me don't mind working hard. We work our friggin' butts off. We work more than it. In fact, the knock on us is we work too much, right? And I did a whole thing on leverage, and I talked about everything I'd leverage in my life.
What is leverage for the audience?
Okay, so let me put it to you like this. Here's the easiest way I can describe leverage, okay? For all of you listening, I do more than probably any of you listening by doing less than all of you listening. Think about that. I do more than almost all of you because I do less than almost all of you. So think about that. When I'm here on Friday, they come and wash my car in the parking lot. Somebody's cleaning my house. Somebody's getting my groceries. I am leveraging every part of my life so that I can use the strength that is me, which is my mind and the way I think, and like leveraging my businesses I'm freeing myself up to do all of those things. I'm working hard in a very different way, right? When you look at a teeter-totter, and you've got the center, the equilibrium, and when that plank is at equilibrium, and you've got an equal size rock here and an equal size rock here on the left and the right, that thing stays balanced at that point, right? But the further you move that plank over and it turns off of equilibrium, you can have a much smaller rock over here and a much larger rock over here. And the smaller rock can still win now because the leverage is off now, okay? The equilibrium has moved. And so when I look at my life, it's all a battle of the teeter-totter. And it's all, how do I create more and more leverage so that the more little rocks I add over here, the more leverage I create, the bigger the rock I can pick up.
Tell me something. What you are describing is the mind of a great chess player. One of my favorite shows, Queen's Gambit. It literally made chess cool.
Yeah.
Right? I remember like taking off my football uniform and going to the chess club when I was a kid. So we both have the chess in common, right? He's actually a pretty sleepy good chess player too. But I did whoop his ass for the first time I played. But we're going to come back to that. But the point is, how is it?
You guys can edit that after. I understand.
We're not editing.
I don't think that's a fact, to be honest with you.
Thing. But serious question. Let's go. So seriously though, having a little bit of fun tonight. I appreciate you. So you're speaking like a true strategist, like a true chess player. One of the most strategic games is chess.
Yeah.
Tell me, how is it that you took that away, but your uncle, as great of a chess player as he is, found himself in the situation? Help me understand that.
Back to what I said in the beginning, man. You know, we live in a world right now where we're trying to equalize everybody. But we're all the same. We're all the same. No, we're not. We're not. We're not all the same. It doesn't mean we're not all equal. It doesn't mean we're all different pieces on the chessboard. And the problem is we're telling everyone they're kings and queens. And the problem with that is that when a pawn tries to be a king, they're not as happy as they would have been being a pawn. A rook is not as happy when you're trying to make it a queen when it was meant to be a rook. You understand what I'm saying?
Oh, I definitely do. And speaking my language, my man.
And so the problem is we're telling everyone you're a king, you're a queen, you're one. No, you're not. You were never created to be that. And now because we've beat that into your head, you're unhappy now. But you're a king. But you're making moves you were never made to make. You would have been much happier being a rook and you know, spending a ton of time over here, you know, playing chess in your free time and doing, you know, whatever. But now you're having to act like a king to be worthy because that's what no. And so my uncle was a different chess piece than I was. My uncle, remember I said in the beginning, you know, some of us have more entrepreneurial tendencies than others when we're born, and then we have to, you know, work those and season those and whatever. And he didn't have a lot of that, you know. He was a worker. He did not think entrepreneurial. He did not, you know. And so the answer to your question is very simple. My uncle's a different piece on the chessboard, and that doesn't value or devalue any other piece because it's not the game of chess without all of the pieces, right? And so, you know, a lot of people when they hear me say that, that's where they go. They go, oh, so wait, you're a king? You're whatever. And that's exactly the reason why people respond like that is because they've been taught like that since they were little, to be offended by everything to be. And it's like, well, no, you're miserable because you're being told you're that when you're not. And the truth is, in order for the game of chess to happen, you need all the parts.
Do you think, so I love this conversation. First of all, everything you just said was said so eloquently. Do you think that part of the problem is that years ago, there was less noise, so people were I think people were more self-aware back then because of the fact that there was less noise. And today there's so many voices telling you to be a king or a queen or to do all
be independent, but be what we want you to be. Otherwise, you're terrible.
Exactly.
Think about that.
There's a lot of noise around there.
Dude, I just talked about this at our advance. So what you just described was be independent as long as you're what we want you to be. Don't you be what everybody wants you to be. Like they're trying to tell you are. You be who we're telling you. Now that's independence. It's like, well, that's not independence at all, right? But I just talked about this at our advance, and my closing keynote day 2 tends to be a little bit more entrepreneurial focused, a little more personal, a little more whatever. And I said the problem with so many of you in here is that you've spent so much time living through filters and you know, allowing the society to form you and allow you what's okay to say, what's not okay to say, what, you know, who you're supposed to be, what you're supposed to act like. I'm like, 99% of you don't even know who you are. You actually don't even know who you are. You don't even know what you look like because you filter everything you do. Like, you know, be authentic. Here's 15 filters to go with your authentic post. It's such bull crap.
Yeah.
Right?
How many times you've edited yourself, your script.
Holy crap. And then just forget about filters, just editing in general, like watching what we say, watching what we do, watching what we're like. if you get amongst me and my friends, you would think we are the most racist. We love each other. We joke with each other. You know, I think there's an issue when you can't joke anymore. Now there's a problem. You know what I mean? My mentor, who died a few years ago from cancer, was the blackest man you'll ever meet. Like, I'm talking lights go out, you can't see him unless he smiles. Like, that's it. The jokes he and I would go back and forth on were just like, people, if they saw us in a room, would just be,
immediately.
Oh my God, they'd be like, and yet the truth is, he and I loved each other. Yeah. I don't know what you think while you're trying to protect him and we love each other, you know? And yet that's the world we live in right now. That's the society we've lived in. Be free, be authentic, be as long as you're within our walls. Because as soon as you step out, you know, and it's just like, no, I think I'm just going to be me.
I want to unpack that, and I want to unpack what you said. And I don't think it's about the noise that you talked about. There's more noise now. There's more signal now. I don't think that's what it is. I think in life, and I'll use a chess metaphor. Yeah. I think in life there are pattern makers, there are pattern breakers, and there are pattern takers. And I think that we live in these industrial complexes that provide us with syndicated information that we're getting high off of, the dopamine in our brain. We're being rewired to think a certain way. You said, talk about fake entrepreneurs on Instagram was something that you didn't have when you came up, which I think is so interesting that you said that. Yeah. I think what's happening right now is we've always been programmed. We've always been in a system. And it's why there's only one king on the chessboard or one queen on the chessboard, which are extremely powerful pieces, right? So if we look and we scale that, there are these different constructs and there are these different players, right? So there's only one head coach on a football team, right? But then you've got more than one linebacker, right? So there's different places, there's different spaces. And I think that it comes down to not just self-awareness or self-knowledge, because you can be self-aware of who you are and say that I want to be someone else than who I am. And you can put the work in and not just take the pattern, but break the pattern and go and do something different. Sure. I think that right now we're speeding up the consumption behavior that previously you'd have to tune into, you know, the 5 stations that were on the television thing or the radio station. Nowadays, it's in our pockets. It's hitting us over the head over and over and over again. But I think you're definitely highlighting something, which is people are afraid to act outside of the machines that they think they're being programmed to do. And it's almost like that Matrix movie, right?
Correct.
So wake up to the fact of what is the truth, what is your truth,
right?
And then go and do something about it.
By the way, I don't believe in your truth, just so you know. I think there's the truth. I think that we've come to a place where there's your truth and what's the definition of truth then? Because if we all have different truths, there's no truth.
How much time you got?
That's not, okay? But you bring up a very interesting point, which is that feedback as I'm guiding through life and I'm going, you know, it's like, I don't want to get on the thing to sound like, you know, an old man, get off my lawn, but it's like the whole trophy generation thing, right? Where you teach a bunch of people that they're great at this sport. They're great at this, you know, whatever. Chris Rock did a thing on this. And he said, I'm a comedian because of bullies. He's like, we need more bullying. We need people to put ourselves in our place. Like, we need a gentler way to say that is, for me, it's feedback, right? Like, if I decided that I was going to get into, now we'll get into this, but I've got 5, 6 companies, the whole thing, right? But like part of my job, that's the most public, even though it's the smallest part of what I do, is public speaking, right? If I get up, my career took off when I started being myself. There's a post in our Facebook group that just went up because I was joking around at the Advance about how I used to wear a suit that looked like my father's suit, and I would try to act like what I thought a speaker was supposed to be like, and somebody posted it, and they're like, it's real. Here was me with him like 12 years ago, right? My career took off when I just started getting on stage like this, cargos with Nikes and a, you know, whatever, right? I had a girl message me yesterday. She's like, I'm dressing up as you as Halloween. I said, what are you going to look like? And she's like, I'm going to wear like a Jared James merch shirt. I'm going to wear like black, you know, whatever, either jeans or I'm going to wear Nikes, I'm going to whatever. And there was something about that I loved because it was just like my career took off when I finally said, I'm going to stop trying to act like everyone else. And I'm either enough for this or I'm not, meaning I'm made to do this or I'm not. If I can't be my personality, if I can't be like who I am on that stage, a lot of people would say, well, if I didn't make it doing that, well, then that's bad. No, that's good. Because at least I wouldn't spend the next 5 years trying to be something I'm not, right? So at least I find out quicker and I'm like, you know, like a kid in high school. No, I'm not good at basketball. Try something else. Let's not tell them they're great at basketball for 4 years, you know? Like, Chris Rock's not a comedian. If they told him, you're a great shortstop, you just keep up. No, he was terrible. He needed to find another way. And so that feedback is very important. So when we talk about being authentically ourselves and whatever, not just from the perspective that I'm going to make it, but also from the perspective of sometimes I'm not. But that's good because it means that my talents and such weren't made for that particular avenue. The quicker I figure that out, the quicker I find the thing that I was made for, if that makes sense, right? And so the day that I decided to be me on stage and like, I hate the word authentically because it's so overused now, but it's just the truth. I'm the exact same person on stage that I am joking around with a parent at my kid's football game or soccer game or going out and getting a drink with you. I'm probably a little more quiet when I go out with you because I'm a natural introvert, but like I'm the same person everywhere, right? But the moment that I decided that I was going to be the same person on there that I was over there, and that everywhere I went, I wasn't going to have to be like some schizophrenic lunatic and remember which one I am right now. Wait, which one are you from? You know me from this? You know me from the internet? Here's who I am. Oh, wait, you're from my kid's school? Here's who I am. Oh, wait, you're my girl? Here's who I am. Oh, wait, the moment that happened, so freaking freeing, to know that I didn't have to think, I didn't have to toggle through a selection of profiles of who I'm going to be at this moment. And the fact that I was able to make it with who I actually was is awesome. But just as awesome would have been if I didn't, because I would have figured out quicker.
Carl Jung would say that those are the masks you wear, but you're going into things in an unfiltered way. I think unfiltered is probably a better word for you than authentic, because what I'm hearing is that.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, I'm going to get the same Jared on stage at the events. I'm going to get the same Jared if I'm working for you, if we're out to dinner, if I'm tuning into you on a Facebook group. I'm the same Jared. Not a lot of people do that. So I guess the question.
Well, they're afraid.
So they're afraid. Unpack that for our audience. How, and you do this for a living, right? People learn from you. If I'm someone, I know there's many, someone's listening to this right now going, okay, great. This Jared guy, he's pretty freaking cool. How do I do that? Help us understand how you go from the 15 filters of inauthenticity to Jared on stage, ditching the suit, being who you are. I want to unpack that because that's the lessons that this audience really needs to tap into it. Because everyone can say, be your authentic self. And they might say, well, how the fuck do we do that?
That's so easy. Dude, at the opening of our advance, without even meaning to, I told 2 boob jokes. I haven't told a boob joke in a decade. But it was right at the moment. It was funny. So I'm like, this is who I'm going to go for. I'm not afraid of being who I am at the moment because I'm not afraid of who I am. We'll get into that in a second because I've done a lot of work behind the scenes. So I'm not afraid of what's going to show up because I know who I am, right? One of the greatest compliments I got was at the advance. A guy got up, I interviewed him, amazing guy. He came through like gang life, all this other kind of stuff, poverty, saw nothing but poverty. And he found me online, started following, became one of our students, now one of our coaches, killing it, had just bought his dream car, telling this story. And when we're ending, impromptu, I didn't ask him to do this. He said to the audience, he goes, guys, I've had a chance now to like get behind the scenes. He goes, this guy is exactly who you think he is. Like behind the scenes, backstage, we're talking, whatever. He's like, it's exactly like that. Now, I tell you that story because I figured out a long time ago. This is one of the things we teach our students, our followers, our entrepreneurs. Great marketing is not what everybody thinks it is, okay? Everyone thinks that great marketing is about bringing in a ton of people. Just get as many people as you can, okay? Great marketing not only attracts the right people, it repels the wrong ones. And that's the part people miss, okay? Great marketing not only attracts the wrong people, attracts the right people, it repels the wrong ones, okay? So that's a very important point for everybody who's listening to understand. Great marketing does not only attract the right people, it repels the wrong ones. So what do I mean by that? When I'm up there, being non-censored or whatever it is, I am sending a signal to everybody in that audience.
It's safe to be uncensored.
Some of them are raising their hand going, that's my ride or die. I love that dude. Like, that is my guy, right? Percentage of them are going, I hope he steps out into traffic later, okay? At least
people have paid to be at your events. You feel like some folks are feeling that way.
Well, you got to remember, most of the events I do, 99% are not our events. Somebody's paying me to come.
Got it.
So everywhere I go, I'm building my tribe, okay? So when I
attract repel.
Look, if I get up in front of there and I act like what everybody's supposed to act like from a speaker coat, whatever that thing is supposed to be, and I keep everybody happy and I just vanilla them, and how do you do 1 to 5? 3, 3, 3.
You're forgettable.
Very forgettable. And I'm not real. It's exhausting. That's not who I am, right? So when I get in front of an audience, I understand that I'm getting a bunch of people raising their hand going, that's my dude. That's my, right? And then I got these other people going, step out into traffic. I can't stand you. Now we know, right? So now we know you need to go find your person that you vibe with, that you whatever. It's not me. But let's be very clear up front. And so what I do along the way is I build this tribe of not, 3 stars out of 5. I'm building a bunch of 5 stars who are your ride or dies. And no matter what you do, what you say, they're like, that's my guy. They'll protect you. They'll come after you. That's what I'm looking for. That's who I'm attracting. But I'm doing that by giving them the real version, the non-censored, authentic, whatever you want to call it, version of myself. And to answer the other part of your question, the reason that I'm willing to do that, and we never talked about odd jobs now that I'm thinking about it. The reason that I'm willing to do that is because I have always been willing to ask myself tough questions. Okay? So I think most people are very self-deceived. And I think very successful people even more are very self-deceived. Self-deceived, meaning when you live in a world where everybody praises you all the time, when you live in a world where you have attention, it is so easy to be self-deceived. You don't even mean to. There's a little bit of narcissist in every successful person. Whether you want to admit it or not, there's a little bit, okay?
Lady Gaga said fame is prison.
It does not mean that it has to take up rent, but it means every once in a while it's going to knock on the door and see if you're available, okay? And so you got to decide whether you're bringing them in for a movie or you're saying, go to the next door, right? But you have to acknowledge it, because if you don't acknowledge it, it creeps in, right?
I want to ask you a tough question, and I know you're going to have a great answer to this, and the audience needs to hear it.
No pressure.
So you said you went up and you made a joke, and the joke, you said you made a boob joke, because you're two exact words, right?
Two. I don't even remember what they were, by the way.
Two jokes or four. So, two. But I want to ask a question. So you have a lot of women in the audiences that you talk to.
Yes.
And, you're very supportive to women, inclusive.
I was raised by a woman.
Yeah, 100%, right?
Yeah.
How do you turn the woman that hears that joke that's massively offended?
Yeah.
Maybe she starts out as I hope this guy walks into traffic.
Yeah.
How do you go from that to deep down, that person is the right audience, but now you've just turned them off by that one comment?
Yeah.
And I say that because I want the audience to learn from you for themselves, which is where that one thing that you did brought many closer to you and many further from you.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, that one thing wasn't the thing that defined who you were. It was just, that was the thing you did in the moment, which you don't even remember now.
Yeah. I'm not trying to, just so you know. I'm not trying to. If you are going to listen to one thing from me and just pop off like that and get so offended, I'm pretty sure you do that every day of your life. So the work needs to be done on you, not me. You know what I mean? Those are people who walk around looking for things to be offended by. You get to know me, you're not offended by that at all. In fact, that's what you love about it. It's like a safe space. It's like being in with your friends. You tell jokes you wouldn't tell out in the public, right? And it doesn't change who you are, right? It's what makes that group so close. When you're in my community, you like that because we're in a safe space. You know me, you know my heart, you know you know who I am. You know that, just when you want to call me a racist because I made it whatever, my girlfriend's Middle Eastern. Like, what are you talking about? Like, that's so stupid. Like, that doesn't even, like the way that, so even with the preface of the question, when you have that woman in the audience, I don't even think like that. I literally don't even think like that. I see people. I have fun with people. I love people. I don't look at people as like classes or genders or, what. I don't even think like that. And it's a fight to protect that because I don't want to think like that. You know what I mean? Because eventually this world's going to come back to civility. And I don't want to have to go through all the rehab that everybody else is going to have to go through. So
has the world ever been sane though?
Well, on some level, I just mean we've taken a turn.
It's funny that you said what you said. I was in a conversation with a guy, and it got really heated, and he teed off on me, and he basically described. He was like, you're like this, and I said, I said to him, what you're describing is a you problem, not a me problem.
Yeah.
And he was like, what does that mean? I said, that's how you interpret me.
Yeah.
That's not who I am.
Yeah.
I said, so that's a you problem. I said, that's what you've built in your head.
Right.
And there's a lot of people that are doing that. So I agree with you.
Based on the filters they've created.
Yeah.
They've, look, 10 seconds later, I joked about myself. Do I hate myself? No, it's called laughter. You might want to try it sometime. What makes things funny is that they're a little bit offensive. They're a little bit, I don't want to experience comedy, where you can't offend or everything is just straight laced. That's not comedy, right? And it doesn't mean that that's, someone hates somebody. So no, I think the fact, get into a group of guys. If we're not trying to make you jump off a bridge, we don't like each other. You know what I'm saying? Our love is shown by how much, if we find a weakness, we are going at it. And that shows how much we love each other. If I'm just being straight laced with you and just being like, whatever, I probably don't like you very much. You know what I mean? So anyway, to finish answering your question, the reason why I'm willing to be like that, the reason why, I talked about how like in every very successful person, there's a little bit of like, you got to watch that knock on the door of, whatever. Because it goes, look, there was a book written where they talked about the top 3 traits of very successful people, like the most successful people in the world. And number 1 was basically that they have a superiority complex. They think they're better than everyone and deserve more. That's the number 1 trait of very successful people. Okay. Can anyone say narcissist? Okay. Like that is like, it's all about me. I am, I'll have to look at this, the triple something effect. I'll look it up. I've got it in my phone.
Put it in the show notes, folks. So don't.
Yeah. So number 1 is that you have a superiority complex, and people are like, what is that? Well, there was a study done 10 years ago where they found that kids that were entitled did better in life. Kids that go to the doctor and the doctor says what they need to do, kids that say why do better in life. It's crazy. But here's the funny thing. Number 2, right after superiority complex, is a crippling insecurity of not being enough.
So imposter syndrome.
Yep. So living within the same person is kind of a narcissist, kind of a, I deserve more than everybody. I do, whatever. And then right after it is this pull of, I'm not enough. I don't deserve this. Who am I doing? What up? In the same person.
And what's number 3?
And I don't know about you guys, but like I absolutely like relate to that, right? It's like there's always this pull.
Well, life is a duality, this polarity in life. I mean, it's for anybody to think that it's just this singular thing that you can just be all ego and no emotion or no insecurity is stupid. It's always going to be a push and pull. The difference is overcoming those pushes and pulls so that you don't show up too narcissistic and you don't show up too insecure.
It's back to the teeter-totter again.
Dude, I was not even back to the teeter-totter, back to the willingness to ask yourself the question. Okay, so here's what I mean. Okay, so number 3, just so you know, is an advanced impulse control.
Advanced impulse control.
It's discipline. They have extreme discipline. Okay. But back to that point, so back to what I said to you before, right? Like you have to acknowledge these things exist. What you also have to do then is you have to always be willing to ask yourself difficult questions. So the reason that I am willing to get on a stage and just be myself and not filter myself and just say whatever is because I'm okay with who I am. I'm not worried about what's going to come out. You know what I mean? I'm not a closet KKK member that's going to say something that's going to get me whatever. I'm not a closet lady hater or man hater. I'm not a closet. I'm 100% okay with who I am in my head, in my heart, and the reason I am is because I'm always willing to ask myself questions, meaning I talk to myself more than anyone. We all talk to ourselves more than anyone, right? The moment you're not willing to ask yourself questions anymore, the moment you're not willing to ask yourself, what was your motive in that? What'd you think about that? Why was that the first thing you thought? Why was that? The moment you're not willing to ask yourself questions, that's when you're in trouble. It's like someone who thinks that if they don't go to the doctor, they're not sick. You're right? If you think that by not asking yourself tough questions, that, oh, you're fine then, you're just good. No. You got to be willing to ask yourself the very difficult questions because those are what keep you in line. That's where you stay honest with yourself. Like, why did I think that way? What's going on over here? Am I good over here? Should I have changed that? Should I have corrected my kid there? Was that cool? Like, I'm constantly asking myself questions. And because I'm willing to ask myself questions, I'm okay with who I am. So that's the answer to the question of where you said, like, how do you get to that place?
Yeah. What I hear a lot of people say, Jared, is they'll hold back on saying certain things. And because they're afraid to lose what they have. What I'm hearing from you in this discussion, is that you'll never forget that moment with your uncle around the chessboard or with your mom crying in the corner who didn't get the $8 an hour job.
Yeah.
You're like, I came from nothing. I made myself into something. If I have to do it all over again, so fucking what?
Yeah, yes and no. Yes.
But I love that about it.
But I've also been very smart about this. So I've joked around and I've told people that this is such a, like, hear me out on this. I'm the Dave Chappelle of this industry. And what I mean by that is not
what
cancelable.
Industry? Sorry, what industry?
Just real estate, like whatever, like just non-cancelable. Because I figured out a long time ago from a business perspective, everybody would go into these conferences and they would sell the crap out of everybody. And they would get a high percentage on, the audience that would buy stuff, but then they wouldn't stick around long because they were buying purely on emotion. I figured out a long time ago how powerful being direct to your consumer is and how much power that gives you. And so I stopped selling from the stage and I started giving away free training, free stuff. And we would give an email and we'd say, send an email to this, we'll give you free stuff, whatever. And all of a sudden, 70% of our audience ended up in our database. And this is where the power is, because now we're direct to consumer. Because as much as I work with every national brand, right before I went and did our advance, I went into the Remax International studios and shot live to 117 countries, and I appreciate that opportunity from them, right? But the moment any one of these brands says, we're not working with Jared James anymore, I got a bigger database than you do because I've built it. I'm direct to consumer. The reason why I can have a portfolio and have many companies that we can build from scratch or purchase, but mainly if we want to just build them from scratch, it's because I can send an email and go, hey guys, and they like me, trust me, they believe what I'm saying, and they will immediately go for it, because I learned a long time ago that more powerful than being affiliated with a major brand or doing any of those things are all powerful and I still do them. Being direct to your consumer, that's why social is so powerful, because I can hit send and I have people's attention right away. It's that attention thing, right? The moment you have that, you're unstoppable, right?
Relationships over transactions.
Dude, well, it's yes, relationships, but it's you have to have a system in place to actually activate those relationships. So like when you talk about your database, which nobody loves to talk about, your email database, it only has a 21.6% open rate. What marketing are you doing that has a 21.6% open rate? Like it's incredible. It's just not sexy. So what we did was we built our database to a level to where I don't need to worry about being myself and then having somebody from The Man or some other thing going, he's canceled. You don't have that power. You know what I mean? They canceled Dave Chappelle over and over again. He's like, yeah, we're just going to keep going out and doing my thing, and I'm pretty sure the people will show up. So good luck with that. But, and so I looked at that 10 years ago and changed it and said, I'm going to build my business in that way where, you can't cancel, where when you look at visibility and you look at audience and you look at distribution, and I look at our businesses like that. I look at, how do we create an audience which creates visibility, and then we have distribution, right? Look at Ryan Reynolds. Everybody knows him as an actor. He's a billionaire because he is following that set. Look at The Rock. Oh, he's paid the most, whatever. His tequila company was just valuated at $6 billion. Look at Kylie Jenner. They got to $1 billion in sales faster than Estee Lauder, faster than L'Oreal. Why? She had visibility. She was direct to consumer, And so we look at that model from a business perspective now, and you look at what's available to us from a social, from your database, which everybody runs from, but it's your database. When you look at that model, it's powerful. It's available to everybody, but anyway, to answer your question, I'm not afraid of, being canceled or saying the wrong thing or I know my heart. I do the work on myself. I know who I am. Doesn't mean I'll never say something stupid. Everyone does. Talk for a living. Doesn't mean I'm all of a sudden a bad person. So different than I was a minute ago.
I feel like I want to start a personal branding podcast, and guest number 1 is Jared James.
Yeah,
sure. On that, speaking in true forward obsessed term, I want to pass it back to you to take us back on track.
Yeah, so I want to bring us back, because at this point, if someone didn't hear the intro or they saw a clip, they were like, who the fuck is Jared James, right?
Not a wrestler, not a porn star.
Gallery of jewelry, definitely not Subway guy.
I have lots of questions that came off of the last 30 minutes, but the most important thing I think we have to hit on is you're a realtor.
I was.
You were a realtor.
Still have a broker license, but yeah. Makes no sense to.
But you weren't just a run-of-the-mill realtor.
No.
You were the guy.
Yeah, I was number 1 in the country.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just tell the audience a little bit about that.
Well, every day I would get up, I would change into a cape and a phone booth and go make it happen.
Yeah.
What I love about my story, I will for a lot of reasons. Number 1, I watched my mother be an agent when I was a kid, and I was her unpaid assistant. And you mirror what you see.
Yeah.
And I used to walk around with a briefcase that I had no code to. I was an athlete. I would show up at basketball practice with a briefcase that had no, it's weird now that I think about it. But to me, that was, remember I talked about you don't know what success is, but you don't, like, to me, that was success. I'm like, people are successful, they got a briefcase, And so real estate was what I saw. I graduated high school early. I have 2 brothers who never graduated high school at all. I graduated high school early, same household, same whatever. I got a full ride to college. I was working full-time in college, same old thing, right? And I started selling cars because I was like, I don't know, hated it. But about 6 months in, a guy came in from a very large moving company. I helped him, and the next thing I know, his vice president called me. I had no idea, and he was just like, you got to hire this kid. And all of a sudden, I get a call from the vice president, and he's like, our president came in. You helped him out. He said we need to go to lunch. I'm like, what? So I go to lunch with this dude and he offers me a job and as a salesperson. So I do that, do very well. And within a couple of years, they're talking about me taking over. Like, they're like, it's a family owned. It's like the third largest allied van lines in the country, but they're like family owned business. Nobody in the family wants it. We're like, we want you to eventually take it. Like, this is, I'm like 20 or 21 or something, and I'm like, what? So I'm like, yeah, success. I don't know what it is, but then I started watching his life more, and I'm like, he's working every weekend, every this, like he's not loving it. Is this really what I want? I'm starting to get more of a glimpse of, and I started watching things within real estate and flips and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, I'm going to get my real estate license. I started flipping houses. I was on the show, Flip This House. Those guys are still friends of mine to this day. Started flipping houses, about getting investments, getting into that. So I got my real estate license to avoid commissions. Then I had friends and stuff that were like, hey, can you start showing us stuff? And, one thing leads to another. And finally, I'm like, this is what I grew up in. This is what I want to do. And for me, it wasn't about being a real estate salesperson. It was about flexing my entrepreneurial muscles. And I thought that it allowed me to do that. I tell real estate people all the time, if your only source of income in real estate, when you have your license, is commissions, you're a highly paid Las Vegas stripper. You got to do the deed to get the money. That's it. You got to think bigger. You got to think outside of that. And so it allowed me to do that. I started selling and I did really well. And a lot of stuff I teach to this day about team building and everything came from all the mistakes I made back then. Teams weren't a thing. Like, they weren't, And so, I started selling and doing well. And, at some point I got to a place where a lot of stuff had happened. A lot of awards have been won. I wrote a book that did well. And next thing you know, it was like, I'm getting asked, would you come and speak at this event? And I'm like,
what was your book, just for the audience? Because I'm sure they might want to check it out.
I hate the first one. The first one was called, I don't even remember right now. I forget. The second one's called Get Out of Your Way.
So the first one was Out of Real Estate, or no?
No, neither one of them were.
Okay.
Yeah. And actually, I've had the publishers now fighting me for the last 10 years going, write a book. And they're like, do you write real estate? Do you write entrepreneurial? Writing a book is like having a child. It sounds like a great idea, and then it's a ton of work. And when you're done, you're like, I'm never doing this again. And a couple years go by, and you're like, maybe it wasn't that bad. And you do it again. I just, it's been busy. I'll do it eventually. But anyway, so then I started getting calls from places to come, and I didn't even know speaking was a thing. I didn't know what I was doing. First I got called locally, and I went and did some stuff, and it went really well. I was scared out of my mind. I remember being at the Westport Playhouse, first event I did for like an actual audience. And I remember being backstage ready to literally wet myself and thinking to myself, like getting my mind mentally right and going, what would a charismatic, great speaker act like? We're going to go act like that for 10 minutes, and hopefully it'll just come over you and you'll, whatever. And I went and won the Academy Award for 10 minutes. And then I kind of got into the groove and I was good to go, right? And then after that, I started getting calls then nationally. And I'm like, what the crap? Like, I remember the first time someone asked me, what do you charge to come and speak? I didn't grow up in this world, guys. Like, so in my head, I'm thinking, charge to come and speak. I just hung out at a picnic for 8 hours for free. Like, what? So I remember telling them like $250, ready to negotiate down. And their response was eye-opening to me, because they were like, okay. Like, in other words, that was way too low. And my eyes were kind of opened, right? And at this point, I'm still selling real estate. I'm still, and then so that started getting busy. I started doing events. You're skipping a lot of details there, but I started doing events and doing whatever. And I was living this double life where it's like I'm on stage, then I'm backstage answering calls from buyers and sellers. And I'm like, something's got to give. What am I going to do here? And ultimately, I looked at it and I was just like, I can have more of an impact doing this. I'm going to give it a go. Just like I did when I jumped into real estate. I'm like, I'm going to give it a go. I'll give it 6 months. We'll see how this works out. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But I got to at least say that I gave it a shot. And the biggest learning experience I had from that time frame was so interesting, because I had nothing to sell people. I didn't know how to monetize that business. I had no idea, And all you ever hear about is people who talk about how, people who sell from the stage, it's so annoying. And it's just another example of the loud minority. Because if you think people get pissed when when you're selling, watch how pissed they get when you have nothing to sell. And so I would go to these events, people get all hyped or whatever, and then they'd be like, so what do you have? Coaching? Do you have a training thing? Do you have a whatever? And I'm like, no. Like, what are you talking about? And they would get ticked. Aren't you going to send us away with something? Aren't you going to? And I saw the other side. I was like, oh, shoot. So we need something. And then I went and created this product called the Successful Agent, which I hate the fact there are people in this world that still have it. Five disc CD set. I don't even know what I was talking about. It was just kind of like, what do you do? What do you, here's, and you put together a little product.
Did it fit in the briefcase?
Dude, it's so bad. Like one of the things I said at the advance is I said every farmer knows that in order to get a great harvest, it takes a lot of crap to get the crop. You know what I mean? It takes a lot of manure, and that was my crap stage. Like I was just putting out crap. I was fertilizing the eventual crop.
You remember the name, so it's clearly better than your first book.
Oh, it was so bad. Oh no, the name of the first book was Enjoy Success Today.
Yeah.
I hate myself for that title.
That was a bad one.
I didn't know what I was doing, dude. I had no idea.
There was no ChatGPT back then.
Dude, like there wasn't even a huge social presence. I had a little bit, like there wasn't even
biggest failure.
Huge,
that book,
whatever. No, the book did fine. Yeah, look, you need that stuff to get to where you're going.
Yeah, of course.
It's just not like
you got to put on the suit before you.
It's not what I would send people to. That's exactly right, by the way.
Yeah.
But it's just not what I would send people to say, here is an idea of who I am. Like here's they tell you to write a book. You got an editor contacting you out in New York, and you're like, okay, well, what do I do here? And I'm following all the instructions on what I think a book is supposed to look like. And yet, like the truth is, the next book I write, if you ever read a real book on what it actually takes to be a very successful person, there is a little bit of crazy in every successful person. There's a little bit that doesn't go in the book. That isn't steps 1 through 4. Every very successful person I know has a little bit of crazy, and sometimes a lot of crazy, that you wouldn't necessarily shoot an Instagram reel on and go, here's what you guys need to do, But you knew this is what I got to do to get this done. Even if this isn't going to be the 3 steps to financial freedom, there's a little bit of crazy.
I say it all the time. I'm crazy as hell.
Dude, there's a little bit of crazy in every successful person. It's not a textbook. But at that point in my life, they were like, write a book. And I'm like, write a textbook.
He says entrepreneurship is a mental health disease.
I say entrepreneurship is like a mental illness.
Every entrepreneur, man, there's a little something off.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there's a little something.
You like punishment. You like people talking shit.
Dude, my kids' friends always
disappointment.
They'll come up to me and it's so great, man. I'm like the cool dad they follow on Instagram, which drives my kids crazy. But they'll come up and they'll be like, Mr. James, what's it like being an entrepreneur? And they expect you to be like, well, is it the yellow Lamborghini or is it the red one? Whatever. And I'm like, guys, every day I get punched in the face 55 times and 3 good things happen. And I hope the 3 outweigh the 55. And then they walk away going, that wasn't very motivational.
I'm going to go play Xbox now. Thank
you, Mr. James. I'm going to go do history homework, right? But that's the reality. Like, that's what's not talked about. Like, it is...
That's what the show's all about.
Yeah, I want balance. Like, first off,
don't be a fucking entrepreneur.
Guys, don't even be a factory worker. That's not balance. You're at the factory statistically more hours than you're home. It doesn't exist. It literally doesn't exist. Think about it, right? Mathematically, it doesn't exist. Inside of every entrepreneur, we're all driving a different car. And we're all just trying to figure out the balance between that acceleration, deceleration. How fast can we hit the curve and not go off the road? And based on the type of car you have, you can go faster or slower. I may be able to go faster than you, and you may be able to go faster than me. But this idea that there's an overall how it works is nonsense. We're all in different models of cars, and we're all hitting that curve and trying to figure out the right balance between the acceleration, the deceleration it takes to be present where we are, not go off the road, and achieve that quote-unquote balance. But there's no such thing as balance. It's nonsense.
Yeah, I love that analogy. I always tell people, especially as things are changing now, that's the skid. Talking about driving a car. We'll stay on that analogy for a second. They say you have to steer into the skid. I often find myself mentoring people, and when they tell me about the problem, sometimes the answer is to steer into the problem.
Yeah.
I'd steer into the skid, and you'll find some success. So I'm curious.
Yeah.
With all these people and all these followers, I mean, I now know, you're a big deal. You got a lot of followers. What do you think the biggest misunderstanding is about you?
Oh boy, I'm so transparent. What would be, two things. One of my buddies, not the one I was talking about a second ago, another one of my buddies has a company right now that's been valuated over $1 billion. It's one of my best friends. He's like my brother. I got good friends, man. I was thinking about, I got really good friends. Like, he's such a good guy, such a whatever. And he goes, such a weird thing to say because it sounds like an oxymoron. But he said this to me the other day. He goes, you know what the big misnomer is about you? He actually said this. He goes, I don't think people realize how humble you are. He's, you come off as this braggadocious out there, like, because you have to, right? Like when it comes to video and it comes to stage, nobody wants Eeyore on stage. Nobody, okay, everybody. No, you have to flip the switch and turn into something. You have to flip the switch and have full confidence. You have to flip the switch. Like nobody's taking advice from someone who's not sure, right? And he knows me behind the scenes. And he's like, the biggest, I think, misnomer about you is he goes, I don't think people who don't know you personally or aren't around you don't understand that level of humility, that level of like being unsure, being willing to ask the questions like we talked about before, having that constant pull between, right, the first trait of being that person that is
titled and
whatever, while also pulling on, I'm a poor kid from a broken home that's just, like that pull that always occurs. He's like, I don't think people really understand, that part of you, because that doesn't always come out in videos or come out on stage. You don't get to see that part, right? Mm. Like when people say, oh, Jared the speaker. I'm like, I'm on a stage less than 1% of my life. Why am I Jared the speaker? I'm a dad more than I'm a speaker. Yeah. No one says there's Jared the dad, And the second one, even though you asked for one, I'm an overachiever. So I'll give you another one on that, is that, and this is very true of a lot of public-facing people, I'm extremely introverted. And so because people only see the outward, they don't understand what I'm really like. And we have a misnomer in our society about what an introvert extrovert is. Everybody thinks an extrovert is Jim Carrey in Ace Ventura, jumping into a room and being silly and an introvert is Eeyore, just okay and whatever. It's not true. An introvert extrovert is how you recharge, okay? So an extrovert recharges around people. Regardless of how they're acting, that's how they recharge. An introvert, regardless of how they act in front of people, recharges alone, okay? And so I have the ability to flip the switch. I know when I get on a stage what I need to be like. I know when I'm shooting a video what I need to be like. I know what it is. That doesn't charge me. When I'm done, like I told you before this podcast, I'm exhausted because I just did multiple days of everyone there for me, pulling on me, and everywhere I'm walking, I'm going back in the kitchen, walking because it's a pull, right? So I have to recharge alone, right? Because I'm a naturally introverted person. Doesn't mean I don't have the ability to be the outward whatever. I said that recently, and someone goes, well, then are you a fraud then? I said, well, when we leave this studio and we flip that light down, that switch down, is the light now a fraud? Or does it know that if it stays on all the time, it's not going to work for tomorrow, right? So we have to view ourselves like that switch. We have to understand how we recharge. And so I think the two things that I think would be a misnomer for the people who follow me or see the public, I know what my girl would say, by the way, if you want a third. But number one would be level of humility. Like I think about it all the time. I really do. Number two would be I'm a natural introvert. And I think if you were to ask my girl, and I just thought of this now because she says it all the time. She's like, nobody gets to see this side. Nobody gets to, is that I can be a goofball. I like just make her laugh all the time. Make my kids laugh all the time. Like I just do goofy things.
Same thing about you.
Yeah. It's, but seriously though, like if they see me in front of them, and I'm not talking about goofball like when I'm on stage making people laugh. That's different. That's like comedian.
That's comedy. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm talking behind the scenes.
Dad joke.
My girl was crying the other day. She was laughing so hard. And she's like, I wish people could see this. Like I wish, but it's not for them to see.
Exactly.
Why do you think that? So I love that conversation, and I want to open that up a little bit because going back to the beginning of this podcast.
Yeah.
What you referred to as something I actually just made a video on about how when people get in front of a camera, they bring their B side. Mm-hmm. The A side is who you are normally. Mm-hmm. When you get in front of the camera, the B side shows up.
Yep.
If the B side is not a mirror of the A side, it is not authentic. Mm-hmm. That to me is the most basic definition of authenticity.
Okay, sounds like a trigonometry course.
And therefore, I'm following them. I'm tracking.
And therefore,
I'm tracking.
And therefore, and when you are the same, when you're not the doctor, when you're not the realtor, when you're not the smart tech strategist, designer guy, and you are yourself, when you're Pete, when you're Jared, when you're Dave, that's when people fall in love. Uh-huh. I've had people come up to me, it's the strangest thing because I make content now because I finally got out of my way and started doing it over the last year and a half. And I've had people come up to me and they say the words when I fell in love with you was at
I
this
get that
moment.
all the time too.
So what I said to him, and I'm going to pick on you for a second, is
For a second.
I've known
20 years.
Yeah.
20 years.
I've known him for 20 years.
Oh, wow.
He is a smart, hilarious goofball. He could freestyle rap off of a Netflix menu and just pick movies
Yeah.
and name people.
Yeah.
He's got this.
That will not be on Instagram.
It will not be on Instagram,
Good.
right? And for me, I'm like,
I know where you're going.
why is that not for the people?
Okay.
Why save it from the people? So you just said, I don't want to give this to the people.
I'm curious to see if your answer is
Why
the same
not?
as mine.
Okay, so first off, you used a great term when you said trigonometry. Try, 3. Side A, side B, then there's a side C. Okay? Side C is not for everyone because not everyone will protect you like those people closest to you. Okay? So the problem with me giving that side, number one is I have a very small circle. I'm never going to be as comfortable to be that goofball in front of everyone else, and neither should I be, right? Like if you walked into my house right now, my dog would kind of be like, oh, wait a second now, right? Like what's going on? But if I walk into my house, my dog naturally will not only run over, he'll flip on his back, he'll just throw himself up, because he has a certain level of comfort with me that he shouldn't have with you. That doesn't mean he's not being authentically himself. It means you don't deserve to see that side. You haven't earned that, okay? And so when we talk about this world, when we talk about trigonometry, side A, side B, side C, that side of me could take away. We just talked about society and how people look at things and how they judge things and how they, right? I could literally, you said, well, shouldn't side A match side B? That's when I fell in love with you. That's when the problem with side C is that could be the reason they discredit me to not listen to side B, which was powerful in their life, which was the voice they needed in their life. But not everybody can handle seeing that goofier side and then still trust that voice in their life because they're like, well, I can't. He's a goofball. I can't take that. That's not, well, he's the guy that was just over here rapping off of now he's going to give me life advice? No, I can't, whatever it is. So for me, there is a side A and a side B, but there's also a side C. And side C is reserved for those who can handle it. And also for myself, because as much as we say authentic, being ourselves, being whatever, how could I ever be as comfortable with everyone else that I am with those 4 people?
That's inauthentic if you
Yeah,
right?
exactly. That would be inauthentic.
Yeah.
And I'd have some issues too. I like, what's wrong with me that I just trust people that much? You shouldn't trust people that much. We just came through a whole conversation about people who want to cancel you, people who want to call you this, call you that, looking for it. So now I'm going to give them they don't deserve it. They literally don't deserve it. It takes a lot to get into my circle, right? But once you're in that circle, you deserve it. You deserve that side of me, just like I deserve that side of you, right? And so 2 sides. Number one, those people don't deserve it. They can't handle it, many of them, right? And number 2, I would literally be affecting their ability to hear my voice in their life because they can't handle it.
So
and now I'm going to steal.
We go. So he asked me the question. He asked almost every time we go out to dinner, we have a great dinner.
Yeah.
He asked the exact same question.
Because he makes
I'm gonna literally hit play
Because they can't handle it.
So I'm not going to tell the answer, but Jared.
But he won't even tell the show.
They can't.
You can't handle the truth.
Look.
But he
This is
won't tell him.
I have a great example of this. A great example of this. One of my mentors when I was coming up was a very followed person, very very public figure. And I remember the first time that I went to an event, and it threw me away. I got backed in a corner, and people this time they wanted autographs and whatever, they wanted to talk and they wanted it. And I was just like, what the crap? Like, it's just me. And I went to lunch with that mentor of mine, and I said, this is another one of my mentors. So not the very black guy. This guy was the very Puerto Rican guy. Apparently I'm anti-white people. And I have a Middle Eastern girlfriend. What is going on with me here now that I'm thinking about this? Maybe I'm the other way. So I went to lunch with him, and I was just like, I don't understand. And I was telling this to the people, and I'm like, guys, it's just me. It's all good. It's whatever. And he's like, you got to knock that off. I'm like, what do you mean I got to knock that off? Like, it's the truth. And he goes, you are robbing their ability to have your voice in their life. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he goes, everyone's a human, everyone's real, everybody's whatever. But don't you have voices that when they speak to you, there's the old adage, the worst thing that can happen is you meet your heroes. They're not your heroes anymore. And now you lose that voice that was so powerful to you, that meant so much. It's so true. Right? And so it's like, when you're sitting there and people are coming over and you're going, it's just me, it's just what... He goes, you think you're doing a good thing. You think you're being authentic. You think you're being humble. What you're really doing is stealing their ability to hear your voice. You just robbed that from them. And I was like...
You ever heard, there's an article I read years ago, something about like watching Superman bleed. and it was a person who was basically talking about there's this vulnerability trend. Everyone's about vulnerability.
Yeah.
And then you take vulnerability too far.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, I'm not following you to see this. Like, I'm following you because you're fucking Superman. Or
we need heroes, man.
Whatever it is.
We need heroes,
right?
We need them.
Totally agree. There was a great, I can't remember where it was at, but it was like watching Superman bleed or something. And it's like, nobody wants to see Superman bleed.
No.
Right? Like,
stupid.
Well, some people do, right?
No, but that's what I mean, though. But that's the society we live in, right? We're tearing down heroes. We're tearing down statues. We're tearing down for imperfections. No. We need, it's like, what was it? Dark Knight Rises or whatever?
Amen.
Where they have that and they made that statue of the villain, Harvey. And they're like, no. Gotham needs a hero. We need and there's some of that's true, right? So the reason why I can give side A, side B, which are completely me, those are 100% real. But the reason I'm not showing side C is the same reason I'm not putting a video up of myself walking into the shower naked. It's not for them.
Yep.
Not okay, right? Whereas if my kids were there, what do I care? They don't have the same access my kids do. That doesn't make me inauthentic, But I have to understand where that line is to where I'm now harming their ability to listen to me. I'm harming their, ability to have that voice in their life. And when I've gone too far, where I'm showing them too much, I'm doing whatever. And where's that line? And also doing something for the people around me don't want everyone around me to see everything they do either. There's got to be something special about being my kids. If my kids go to my funeral one day and everyone else can tell the same stories they do, what's the advantage of being my kids?
They're just other people, yeah. I want to talk about that line
So there's a line is what I'm saying. Like I think we can argue about where the line is, but there's a line.
It depends who you look at. I mean, if you look at Kim Kardashian, they've seen her naked.
To be clear, I'm not trying to be Kim Kardashian.
But she's also put out her whole life. But you talked about her sister building a billion. I see Robert in the background laughing.
Our producer right now is completely right.
But again, though, but
the point
example, that's actually not completely true. Like, so she released a thing, great, but she hasn't done it all the way since. When you look at the Kendall Jenner, she doesn't have a camera set up in her.
But she shows herself with her children. She shows herself raising her family. So she's showing a C-size.
So where's the line?
And she's building billion-dollar brands. She just launched a nipple bra.
Right.
That was a huge launch.
Right.
Right.
So she doesn't have the camera going into the bathroom bathing her children. There's a line. You see what I'm saying? Like, we can talk about where that line is, but we all, whether we recognize or not, have a line.
Yeah,
that doesn't mean you're being inauthentic.
Agreed. I guess the question comes down to where is the line?
Correct.
In the case of when I was referring to it with him, it is that he could use a little bit more line.
Oh, like
you.
I guess.
So you had a great examples. Where is the line?
You'll learn that over time, though. Like you'll become more and more comfortable. We're all shaped.
That's his opinion.
We're all shaped by the experiences, the conversations, the learnable. Like if we're all where we're supposed to be, then there's nothing to learn, right? So like you'll learn from this. I'll learn from you guys. Like being open to that learning is also what makes you, sense of free and authentic. Is that you realize how much you have to learn. Another question someone asked me recently. They said, "What do you do better than anyone?" They're like, so why do we follow? What do you do better than anyone, right? And I don't know if they want, I could jump higher. I learn more than anyone. Like literally my whole life.
Progress.
You would think, because my mind works a certain way and whatever, that I would just be walking around trying to teach everybody. And just be going, hey, I see this, I see that, I see whatever. Dude, I literally walk into everything and I'm trying to pull something from everyone. Like, I'm just like, I'm searching for it. What do I have? What do I have? What do I have? I'm like... what's his name from the Avengers, who's just pulling another ring or another another stone. I'm looking at everybody and go, where's my next stone? Where's my next? Like, I'm looking for how to learn, how to grow, how to, you know what I mean? Like I know everybody says that, but like I legitimately do that, So it's
the comedy in you, because you said a good stand-up comedian is observing all the time.
Everything.
That I mean, that's something that you and I have in common. I bring a lot of comedy into my content. Because when I was a child, I wanted to be a comedian. I thought that was what I wanted to do for a living. And
that's who you are. I think that's ultimately who you are.
I had someone at my event come over. We were doing it after, and they literally walked over, and because during our last event, I took about 15 minutes and ad-libbed for 15 minutes and just had fun. And they were dying laughing, like dying. And a guy comes out to me with the meet and greet, whatever. He's like, he's like, you just go do you ever done just a stand-up set? Just go and do it. And I'm like, dude, one of my favorite events I ever did, I did the Miami Improv for an event. They hired for an event. And I'm in the back, and I got a picture of Jerry Seinfeld, a picture of Dave Chappelle, and I'm like, I'm about to walk out on a stand-up stage, right? with a mic for a stand-up, like the whole thing. I'm like, screw this. I'm doing 10 minutes of just pure improv. Went out, 10 minutes, murdered, like had so much fun. Then throughout my content, I was telling jokes, whatever. At the end of the event, this guy comes over and he's like, dude, I want to tell you, man, that was amazing. And I'm looking at him going, he does not look like somebody who would be at this event. And I'm like, oh, thank you. And then he goes, I'm the manager here. And he's like, if you ever want to come do a set, he's like, open up. I'm just like, I will never do it. Best 10 seconds of my life. Like when he said that, I told everybody I know close to me. I was like, yes, like, whatever. Because you're like, because there's a little piece of you that I used to think that's what I would want to do. I love what I do now, but now I just mix it.
So I want to, let me jump in there for a second. Apologies. So now I want to talk about a possible pitfall.
Okay.
Because you're a majority, I don't know your whole audience.
Okay.
But I'd imagine it's heavy real estate.
Yes and no. A lot of entrepreneurs, remember 87% of real estate people aren't in real estate after 5 years.
Okay.
So we have a lot of people who began there and then they move on. Mm-hmm. And then lately we've been getting a lot of entrepreneurs. But yes, that's the main base.
Okay. So I personally have a beef with real estate agents and brokers. Mm-hmm. I think that majority of them are not worth the 5% commission.
You're right. 6, right? But yeah, you're right.
6, whatever it is. They sit back and they're waiting for...
Correct.
They wait for customers. They do very little work.
Correct.
Put something on an MLS or on...
Correct. Throw it on the MLS and pray.
Now...
Correct.
That market is really under fire from 2 different areas. Mm-hmm. One is you've got the BlackRocks coming at
Correct.
you and they're buying up all the houses. They want everybody...
They want a renter's nation.
Renter nation.
Correct.
And the second is there was just a class action lawsuit.
Well aware of it. I know people that have just subpoenaed. They're all friends of mine. Yeah.
So and the pressure on that industry is growing.
The media headlines are growing, but we can talk about that.
Okay.
You're reading headlines.
Well, I know what I know from I'm on the commercial real estate side. I built a commercial real estate development. You're
correct.
A tenant here. I have a distaste for a lot of commercial real estate brokers.
Probably
I feel like
deserved.
Yeah. And then on the residential side, a friend of mine just developed a beautiful luxury project.
Yeah.
And I look at this big company that is marketing it. Yeah. And they're doing a shit job of this gorgeous development that he did. And I'm like, dude, just tag me in. I'll do it for free. I just want to help you.
Probably accurate. Yeah.
Yeah. And so when I see that and I look at this top performing real estate person in this market that's doing a shit job for him, I'm looking at the market in general.
Top performing over the last however many years, right? Like that's how people know them. They've got,
It says it on their Instagram. They got 1,000 followers and they're a top performer in that market, in that region. And I'm like, they're not doing their job. Their commissions they shouldn't be getting the commission that they're asking for because of these things. You've got people buying up the market from the outside. So you got billionaires, trillionaires, BlackRock's trillions, right? Coming into the market. What is that going to do to your business? Where do you pivot from here? Or what happens to the industry? How does the industry pivot from here to avoid a pitfall?
All right. So first off, your feeling about most real estate people is probably very justified. And by the way, most actual top real estate people agree with you. Our whole theme at our advance was pros versus amateurs. The idea that you got a lot of amateurs here that basically went to real estate classes that taught them nothing about business or real estate. They know there's 43,560 square feet an acre. They don't know anything about real estate. Most people are brought into real estate and it's just another Amway. It's talk to your friends and family, talk to your friends and family, talk to your friends and family. It's a multi-level marketing scheme. Mm-hmm. So as far as who the pros are in the business, that's not the majority, which is why a company like mine exists. We're trying to make more pros. We're trying to teach people actual skill sets. We're trying to teach people you either run a business or you run around. It's not a hope business. It's not a hope your phone rings. It's a business. And that, we're in a market now where things are condensing and, the real ones are going to win and they should. And telling people you've been around for 30 years is not a selling technique. You might have sucked for 30 years. We don't know. Simply existing doesn't mean you're great. And just because you were a pro 7 years ago doesn't mean you're a pro now. The real estate market, entrepreneurialism, whatever, it's all a conveyor belt. It's constantly ticking forward. And so when you just sit still, I've been around, and you don't just sit still, you fall behind because everything's moving forward, okay? And so my battle within the industry is creating more pros. creating people that there is an advantage to them doing what they're doing. There's an advantage to somebody working with you. There's a reason why they work with you, right? You did all the whole, I saw your thing the other day, visibility trumps ability, but visibility is your responsibility, like teaching them, what it means to be a business, not only for themselves being visible, then what happens as a result of you working with them with their property, finding other properties. So I agree with, everything you're saying. Now, having said all of that, the market is plenty big for all look at it. Like right now, our transaction count this year is going to go down to about 4.2 million. At a high during COVID, it was 6.1 million, which we've never seen before. Crazy. So now the market's going to drop 20, 25, 30%, and everybody's going, holy crap, what's going on? Everything's falling apart. Do you know what 4.2 to 4.4 million homes sold is called? It's called right before COVID. Do you know what we called those years? The highest years in history. We had never seen years like that. So we are back to a record market before COVID. There are plenty of transactions for everyone that is an actual pro. Not everyone who watched HGTV and got their license or failed at their other jobs, so now they're going to give real estate a try. For the pros in the marketplace, they're worth every dime that they get. For all the imposters, it's one of the things that drives people in the real estate market nuts, is whether you are an awesome person that has every advantage in the world or whether you're brand new and you're doing this part-time, you get a license called a realtor. And it's you don't know, the consumer doesn't know the difference. They don't. So now you take it to that class action suit. I don't know how far you want to go into that, but I'm very familiar. I just took a 4-hour car ride with one of the guys that was just the interview, that it was just came all over the news. He's one of my best friends in the world. All of them are my friends. You're reading a lot of headlines. The actual truth of the case, there's not much to it. Like there really isn't. Okay, so
just for the audience, could you just maybe give a quick primer on what you mean?
There's a class action suit right now that basically is saying that real estate organizations, sellers in particular, should not be forced to share a commission with a buyer's agent, and they need to be transparent in what's being offered out, and they shouldn't have to offer out a commission to the other side. Okay, so on all of those fronts, it's utter nonsense. First off, a seller, when you sign a listing agreement between an agent and a seller, the agreement is between the agent and the seller. It is in the agreement that they have the right to offer out a percentage to a buyer's agent. They don't have to. The actual agreement is between the seller and the agent. They don't have to, but it's in the best benefit of the seller to do so, because the odds of the listing agent bringing the buyer compared to the thousands of other options that are in that area, it's probably going to be one of the other thousands, okay? And so then they're saying, well, you shouldn't have to offer out a percentage to a buyer's agent, because in order to put a property on the MLS, you have to offer something, right? And so they're going, well, if you have to offer something, well, that's not fair. That's not great. So now they're changing it. A lot of these larger places have changed and said, you don't have to offer anything out. Whoop-de-freaking-do. It's in your benefit. You don't have to shower before you come here. You didn't have to get dressed. I think we all agree it's in everybody's benefit that you did both of them.
Didn't want to that to you today.
So if you want to put your house on the open market and say, hey, let's not offer anything to a buyer's agent, and that's in the best benefit of the seller, good luck, Mr. or Mrs. Seller, to all those thousands of people with buyers that are going to go, I'm not showing your house. Like, no freaking way, right? So then the buyer comes directly to you. Well, they're also very educated, and they know you're not paying a commission. So now they're going to eliminate that from the price they pay, and they don't have representation now. So how's that going to work, right?
We're back to leverage. We're back to leverage again, aren't we?
And then on top of all of that, the other part of it is, well, they need to be transparent. Like when you go on most sites, they don't say how much a buyer agent is making. They just it's not out there. Places like Remax and others changed that 3 years ago. So the fact that they're coming in and going, okay, we now promise to do that, they were already doing that. Like literally, when you follow through what's happening right now, nothing's changing. Nothing. There's nothing changing. If they come down with some bombshell, whatever, and they go, sellers don't have to offer out to buyers anymore. Awesome. That's not in the benefit of the seller by any means. Like, you're going to get less. For sale by owners get less than 20% on average what an on-the-market property gets, because they don't have the exposure, and buyers are educated. So when they come in, they go, we're going to eliminate 6% right off the bat because the neighbor paid that. You don't have to pay that. That's statistically what it is. Like, so there's all this to do about some people who got angry and decided to sue and said, my kid shouldn't have had to have paid a commission, and I shouldn't have had to pay a commission, and whatever. Great. Do the whole lawsuit thing. Go through the whole process. The media loves it, so they're making it a big deal. At the end of the day, I'm telling you, it's a distraction. It's not going to matter to anything. It does not matter. Nothing's changing other than you don't have to be a part of NAR. Okay, great. Whatever. I don't know how much deep you guys want to go into that, but National Association of Realtors, in order to be called a realtor, you have to have a membership to, most MLSs, that in order to be a part of the MLS, they tell you that you have to be a member of NAR. So there was this thing where it's like, well, that's not right. So now some of that may change. You may have rules come down that say you can be a part of the MLS and not have to join NAR. Okay.
But there's also a time I used to have to pay extra for cell phone minutes before 7 o'clock or something like that.
By the way, some of the stuff around
The world's changed.
some of the stuff around having to join certain organizations are definitely a monopoly and are definitely going to change. And those are parts of the case that aren't necessarily the public facing, that the public cares about. Some of that's going to change. That doesn't affect you guys at all. That'll affect agents a little bit, but it doesn't affect you guys at all.
I don't think that the industry is going to go away. That wasn't where I was trying to go with it. I think the bigger issue right now is that it's going to force innovation, right? Like
Sure.
for me, I only see it from one side because I only deal on the commercial real estate side. I never ever use.
By the way, commercial real estate is way behind residential.
Yes.
Just so you know, agents and everything else. But anyway, yeah.
They just
way
make up,
behind.
but the brokers that are there, they're so old.
It's a bunch of been around forever.
Been around. They make up their own rules.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
we're 4%, now we're 6%. We're 6%, now we're 10%. Oh, you got to pay 5 and 5. You got to pay double commission on both.
You usually have dominant agents in the area that control
the
different
Cushmans, the GLLs,
Yep.
you got the CBREs. They're like the old school guys.
Yeah.
So I completely see it on that side. I do see it on the residential side, and I think that because of the fact that it's been this revolving door, and I think the issue with real estate is because it's been this revolving door, or to your point, a pyramid scheme, right? In a sense, right? Just bringing in or
multi-level marketing.
multi-level, where you're bringing in lots and lots of people that are not doing the job just to get like 1 or 2 customers or 3.
That's why a lot of them fail. Brokers let them hang their license. Let's get your mom. Let's get your grandma. Okay, you're out of the industry. I got a couple sales.
And then when you have the predatory behaviors of some of the organizations, I think that you have a situation where people start looking at it like, hey, if we don't force innovation or create a class action lawsuit to bring eyeballs to it, things are going to change. But it sounds like you've got the perspective of it's not going to go away. It's going to cleanse itself.
Sure. And that's already happening. We've lost 100,000 agents.
That's natural selection, though.
Yeah.
That's one agent every 6 minutes.
Yeah.
So that's going to keep happening, and it should happen. You hate to, it's just true, though.
You want innovation.
10% of the agents do 90% of the business. Like, they're the actual agents.
Selection, like literally, look at nature. It's
It's
the strongest survive.
dude. And
Best survive.
the second question you asked me was, you said, well, how do you protect yourself against that? We have a lot of entrepreneurial people, right? But you got to remember too is that we are in my portfolio right now named. We have another one coming, but right now named we have 5 companies in our portfolio.
Mm-hmm.
I think about this like I could literally, like, let's just say real estate falls apart and it's gone tomorrow, which won't happen. That's not happening. It's not travel agent industry. It's not, you don't add a house to a shopping cart and connect your PayPal. That's not happening. But with how I'm positioned now, the entrepreneurial side, whatever, like I could literally do anything. Many of my businesses are very outside the industry, inside the industry, make a lot of money speaking. I got entrepreneurial friends that literally build tribes and have different trainings and whatever, and have tens of thousands of people in them and make awesome livings and do, there's so many different places I could go very easily. Right now, though, I'm kind of focused on our portfolio. I'm focused on our students. I'm focused on our portfolio. I'm not only building out the content and the blueprint for our students, which is then implemented by our coaches and implemented by like all of that. But I'm also building companies now that will stand on their own, and I'll sell them off, as part of our portfolio.
That company you just launched recently, right?
We have 2 tech companies. We just acquired another one. So we have a tech company called First Up, FYRSTUP. We just signed the largest Century 21 in the world. We're doing a deal with a major brand all over Canada right now. We're doing, like, it's killing. Like, it's fantastic.
Well, what is First Up, just for the audience?
It's so simple, man. It digitizes the traditional whiteboard. So literally what used to happen is agents would go into an office and they would have a Monday morning meeting and they would all look at a board, an office whiteboard. And what that would do is it would show them what listings are coming, what's coming up, because when a listing, between the time someone takes a listing and it actually hits the market, the MLS, there's a thing called clear cooperation, where they are not allowed to market that to the outside world, but they're allowed to market it within brokerage. And in a low inventory market especially, that's so powerful because now everybody in your office who has buyers are going, hey, there's one coming up before everybody else sees it. Let's see it. Hey, and all this matching starts happening. So we created this platform so simple where they enter that info. It's like the virtual whiteboard. And within brokerage, because people are also uploading their buyers, everyone's being notified of the new listing coming on that's available before everyone else. So every buyer you're working with has a proprietary list of sellers nobody else has access to. It's also buyer matching and telling that seller, that listing agent, hey, there's a buyer that matches, or to the buyer's agent, hey, that listing matches you. You're doing deals before it ever happens.
A sneaker drop
in a completely compliant manner.
Right.
Now, take that same principle, and now we haven't talked about this publicly, but it's killing within real estate. We could do it in cars, inventory coming, especially with how low inventory is right now, what cars are coming in. Go to a car dealership. What do you have coming in for inventory? Well, let me pull up 50 pages here. Looks like we have a blue one coming in 2.5 weeks. I'm not sure. Let me go check against this. It's so inefficient. So there's many more places we can go with it. Another company we just acquired, we haven't talked about this publicly, but it's called Broker Assist, and it's TaskRabbit for real estate. So essentially what it is you have all of these people who need to learn to leverage, but they haven't built out the leverage or they don't have it at their brokerage, and they need signs put out. They need a painter. They need
vendors, whatever,
or they want to have on that same platform, they want to have the title company, the mortgage company, pay them thousands of dollars every month to be spotlighted on there for all the agents to see.
More like a Fiverr, right?
So
it's like I've got a thing, I need a vendor, I need something to get done, or a thumbtack.
Go more TaskRabbit. TaskRabbit is the one where you're actually pulling them into your house. Like TaskRabbit is who I call when I'm having have some college kids come build the new, whatever I bought, or whatever IKEA thing, whatever. So now we can take that. It can be a standalone company called Broker Assist, or we can take that code and we can build it into First Up. And now all those places who are digitizing that whiteboard and they're using it to see what's coming, what's going, whatever. Now it's also an inter-office communication tool. Back and forth. I need someone to do this, or I need whatever I need. And so we just acquired that, which is great because the number one thing we kept hearing from brokers and brands when we were talking to them was, I wish we had a way, and they described what we just, acquired. So we haven't released that publicly, but that's it. So we have 2 tech companies.
We'll tell you when this releases so you know.
I know, it's fine. It's all good. So yeah, we have those 2, and then we have a transaction coordination company called Cleared and Closed. And all of these were just solutions to problems that I saw that I got tired of referring out thousands of people to other companies. The entrepreneur in me went, okay, I've got the visibility.
I've got the deal flow. I'm going to solve
audience, visibility, distribution, right? So I'm sending all these people over, and I'm like, I think we're gonna do that, And so we built that. We have a marketing company that started off as a marketing company for ourselves that we now offer out to other people. We have the coaching, training, speaking company, which is really, it's out there as a coaching company, but that's the company that I kind of we do both the one-on-one coaching, we do the virtual training, we do my speaking through it, we do our events through it, all of that stuff. And so, yeah, it's this is why when I say I do more than most that are listening by doing less than most that are listening, the reason why I leverage my whole life is because my whole life is making decisions and doing, it's like for every employee who's coming over and being like, Jared, I need this. Well, it's like there's 90 other of you that are doing, that are asking for things and doing things. And, so it's an interesting world.
So, first of all, when I had mentioned you as a potential guest, our producer, Robert, was like, he's a real estate guy. Is he an entrepreneur? And I said, hey, he's an entrepreneur. This guy is
alone, man.
Through and through. And it's clear through this conversation that you're an entrepreneur, that you build entrepreneurs through your content and through both through real estate and otherwise. My biggest takeaway is probably one of my favorite things that you've said a bunch of stuff. I just quoted you, as you mentioned the other day, about visibility being a responsibility, but you either run a business or you run around. And I think that applies to everybody.
That's it, man.
And that's really come across. Congratulations on First Up. I had a real estate entrepreneur that I'm friends with told me about the product, not knowing that you were in this building.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I was like, yeah, that's Jared James. I was like, he's in district. And he was like, he's here. And I was like, yeah, that's his team sitting down right there.
I stay kind of silent too. So I launched that. My girl is actually the CEO of that. She ran a similar company before we built whatever. And I let her be the face. I jump in when I need to on a meeting to say hello and whatever. But like, she runs it. She does. I kind of stay in the background.
Yeah. Well, he immediately was like, it's a brilliant business, and it was needed. I'm just happy to have you here as a member of the community at District. Super excited to have you as part of the audience. Do you want to, I think you've plugged your name a bunch, and we've plugged your name a bunch as the wrestler, porn star, and real estate and speaker.
That's great.
Anything you want people to know? You talk to the camera, break the wall, tell them.
No, here's the thing, man. So like you talked about the video you put out last week. I talk about with, like I said, although we focus a lot with the real estate people, I do a lot of conferences that are outside. I'll do more moving forward. I'll be branching out more and more and more. We kind of have our niche here, and I'll keep that niche. But, that niche of those people, they're all entrepreneurs. And like I said, 87% of them move on to something else, right? And so that'll be another reason I start branching out more and more, is because they're asking for it. I see it in the DMs. They want more. But the principles are tried and true, man. I talked about for years, visibility trumps ability. And the idea was that the best is not the one who wins, it's the one who's the option. And now the market that we're in now, I said we need to go one level further with this. Visibility not only trumps ability, visibility is my responsibility. So for everybody who's sitting down and they're just like, I don't want to make videos, I don't want to do this, I don't want to, whatever. It's like, what are you doing, man? Your job is, it's it. Like my brother, who's a mechanic, when everything moved on to computers, came to me one time and he's like, I didn't get into this job to learn computers. I'm like, well, if you want to keep being in that job, you better learn computers. And so you may not have got into being an entrepreneur, being a salesperson to create content or to create visibility, but that's what you're in now if you want to move forward with it. I said this to the audience the other day, like, we're not in high school anymore. And what I mean by that is you spend all of your high school years trying not to be rejected. It's all about fitting in. But once you leave high school, that better stop, unless you want to peak in high school. Our whole life now is about getting rejected every day. Our job is to give people the chance to know us, K-N-O-W, so they have a chance to know us, N-O. That's it. That is my job from the moment I wake up to the moment I go to sleep, is to do activities that give people who woke up this morning, who never heard of me before, the chance to know me, K-N-O-W, so they have the opportunity to know me, N-O, right? Mm-hmm. It's know to know. And the more that I can do that, the more I'm going to win. That's it. The number of people who wake up this morning have not heard of me, but by this afternoon have to make a decision about me, that's called winning in business. And I don't care what level of business you're at. I don't care what kind of business you run. I don't care what kind of entrepreneur you are. If you want to sum it up to one thing, you want your business to grow? How many people this morning have never heard of you? How many people this afternoon have to make a decision? But we're not in high school anymore. Right? It's not to avoid rejection. It's not to whatever. Like, at the end of the day, if you want to be the most successful, whatever you are in your area, become the most rejected, whatever you are in your area, and you'll do just fine. That's it.
Well said. So platforms, Jared James Today on everything?
Just go to connectwithjared.com. We make it easy. By the way, there's a little tip for you guys too. Make it easy to connect. So we got tired of telling people on Facebook personal on this, on Facebook fan page on this, on Instagram on this, on YouTube on this, on TikTok on connectwithjared.com. It's that simple. When you go to connectwithjared.com, you'll see all of the platforms. You'll see the podcast. You'll see everything there. We just make it easy. So for all of you listening right now, rather than putting all those icons in your signature, then everybody has to click go back, click go back, click go back. Just get a little one pager, a little landing page. Just put connect with whoever, whatever it is. Make it really simple for people to connect, because at the end of the day, I said this earlier to you guys, but it's about being direct to consumer. The more direct to consumer you are, the more power you have within your career, within your entrepreneurial journey. And the number one way to connect to people is your database, but number two is going to be your social. And when you start to look at those things that I can just hit send and be in front of people, it's just visibility, visibility, visibility. And for those of you that are kind of like, holding back, you're not sure what to do, whatever, the number one tip I can give you when it comes to being visible is learn to post, learn to do things with absolutely no expectation of return. Step aside from this society that goes, how many likes, how many follows? We have a society full of people buying followers right now. I go to people with they're local realtors and they have more followers than me, but they have 137 views on their video. Okay, stop acting. learn to post with no expectation of return. It's not about how many you're following. It's about who it is. You never know who it is, and just
that compounds.
That's it, man. Just get in the content of doing things to be visible every single day. That's it. That's how you win.
Jared, this has been a great journey.
Thanks everybody for tuning in to Forward Obsessed.
Thanks for having me on.
Wrap.
Thank you for listening to Forward Obsessed. Please share this episode, subscribe, and leave a review on your podcast app. This episode was hosted by Pete Senna and David Salinas from the Digital Surgeons Podcast Studio in New Haven, Connecticut. Special thanks to our AV crew, Steve Walter and Meg Olson. Forward Obsessed is produced by Robert Roach. If you'd like to contact our team, visit us at forwardobsessed.com.